starting with the earliest known events in the Saint Seiya universe with a focus on the Greek gods on the mainline timeline, so no need to bring up characters like Demerge. This video will mostly focus on the classic continuity, but I will bring up alternate universes or alternate timeline events if they're interesting and worth bringing up. The Saint Seiya franchise is similar to comics in that it has alternate universes, timelines, multiverses, and multiple versions of gods. Different writers add their own interpretations, so I'll aim to stay as consistent as possible, but know that no one will completely agree. I will also be skipping events that are just lifted directly from mythology, unless they're essential. Now, let's get started. The beginning, chaos, and the Big Bang. In the beginning, chaos existed, which we really only know through guidebooks. Also, chaos is referred to as a she. Chaos is a primordial being before all of creation. Like chaos, some aspects of the origin of the universe is simply a mystery. However, we know that the Big Bang, or the Great Explosion, was tied to Kronos, a primordial god linked to the creation of time and cosmos. The explosion unleashed divine will in the stars, birthing the primordial gods Gaia, Uranus, and Pontos. This marked the age of the gods, a time of myth and divine power. Humans and the battle of Uranus and Kronos. Eventually, humans were created, but unlike in current times where humans are mostly normal people, there once was a time where humans were more connected to the Great Will, not being much different from the gods themselves. In fact, some believe that the Greek gods were simply humans that awakened to a greater awakening of power themselves. In the early age, Uranus would create things such as mountains and the sky. He would also have monstrous children, like the Cyclops and the 100-handers. He shunned those creatures and imprisoned them in Tartarus. He allowed his younger children, the Titans, to stay, but he had no love for them either, as he was to be the only true god. Gaia, angered by Uranus' cruelty, asked her children to overthrow him. Only one answered, the youngest of her children, Kronos. She gifted him a divine scythe, and Kronos slayed his father and sealed him, and he was ordained the ruler of the world. But as a wise man once said, like poetry, it rhymes. Kronos became a tyrant himself, devouring his children out of fear of losing his power. Only Zeus escaped, raised in secret until adulthood. When the time came, Zeus freed his siblings. Thus began the Titanomachy, a 10-year war between the gods and titans. Zeus's secret weapon in the war was the discovery of lightning. Well, more like it was stolen by his future wife, Metis. Now, lightning is a powerful force that nullifies even divine power and godly regeneration. Armed with this great power, Zeus and his brothers defeated the Titans and sealed them in Tartarus. But Gaia, enraged by the treatment of her children, mated with Tartarus to create Typhon, a monstrous being who was so large his body would destroy mountains, and was so tall his head could reach the stars. Fearing for their lives, the gods fled to Egypt, leaving Zeus to face Typhon alone. Although Zeus was defeated initially, he would eventually rise again and somehow defeat Typhon and become the king of Olympus. The First Holy War. For reasons unknown, Zeus left the earth and left it to his daughter, Athena. Although she was kind-hearted, Athena was also the goddess of strategic war and among the most powerful deities in the series. Seeing an opportunity, Poseidon, ruler of the sea, raised a powerful army and started the First Holy War. He created the massive fortress of Atlantis and amassed an army of warriors known as the Mariners, led by the 7 generals who wore invincible armor known as scales, which were compared to GodCloth armor. The warriors of Earth were easily defeated. Seeing this, Athena enlisted help from the people of the continent of Mu to forge Saint Cloths, armor which were created with the mythical material Arcalium. The saint's armor was, however, created with Arcalium and Ganymum. Only young men survived to don Athena's sacred cloths and become what is known as a saint. Yet Athena's saints fought back and overpowered the mariners, forcing Poseidon to retreat. Athena pleaded with his brother to surrender, but Poseidon from Atlantis caused earthquakes and typhoons across the world. This forced Athena to go on the offensive, and she sent 8 saints to attack Atlantis, which they ultimately defeated Poseidon and sunk Atlantis to the bottom of the ocean. In an alternate timeline, the people of Atlantis grew so great in power and technology that they sought to challenge the gods, but were ultimately defeated by Zeus. The Gigantomachy. Gaia would somehow return. This time, she would use the giants, and she would even free Typhon. Not only that, she would birth another powerful child with Tartarus, known as Kempi. Though little is known about the giants, they possess power beyond even Athena's saints. So once again, it was a battle for Olympus, a battle against Zeus. But this time, Zeus was not alone. All of Olympus, even Hades, fought alongside Zeus to defeat Typhon and his brother. In the end, the gods would come out victorious, with Athena dealing the final blow against Typhon, sealing him once again. The Age of Chaos, the war against Ares. Next would be the final known war in the Age of Myth, stated to be one of the most brutal in history. The War of Ares and the Berserkers. Ares had a brutal nature that only his uncle Hades truly understood. As being the lord of the underworld, he knew more than anyone how much destruction he caused, but he simply watched. The battle against Ares is considered the most ferocious among gods. He sows the seeds of conflict across the world and incites people to war. Ares' army is known as the Berserkers, and they are divided into 4 groups: Flame, Fire, Terror, and Calamity. They are called the Mad Warriors, wreaking havoc and destruction. With him are his children, Phobos, Deimos, Charis, and Kytimos, alongside his partner, the goddess of discord, Eris. The battle between Athena's saints and Berserkers was said to have continued endlessly, with the saints ultimately losing the battles against Ares and his warriors. Since the first holy war, Athena has forbidden weapons, but times were dire, so she allowed the saints to wield the Libra weapons that can only be wielded if they are given permission by Athena or the Saint of Libra. These weapons are stated to be able to destroy stars. In the hands of saints, their power is greatly magnified via their cosmos. With these weapons, they not only fought back against the Berserkers, but easily defeated them. The war would end with Athena sealing the goddess Eris and the Berserkers, and Ares retreating to the underworld. In an alternate timeline, the Flame Battalion, one of Ares' divisions, was captured and executed in the Phantom Arena. Their still moving heads remain trapped there, sealed by Athena. This marks the end of the known holy wars and the beginning of the Age of Humans. However, there would of course be other conflicts, such as the Trojan War with Apollo, Ares, and Athena. 2 characters such as Hector and Aeon of Grace would play small parts in the franchise later. The fall of Mu Continent and the Phoenix Cloth. The Phoenix Cloth is known as the strongest of the Bronze Cloth and has an ability to return from the ashes, something that even gold cloths cannot do. At some point, a wicked man forced the phoenix cloth upon himself. The armor, sensing his evil, detonated with a massive explosion that destroyed the Mu continent. The cloth saw this as the lesser evil compared to the chaos the man would have unleashed. With the Mu continent gone, many of the secrets of the Saints' cloth were lost forever. Black Saints, the 13th Temple, and the rise of humanity. At some point, seemingly as a backup for a particularly intense holy war, Athena created the Black Saint army. These exist in bronze and gold. They are seemingly comparable but weaker in strength to normal armor. One day, these armor were worn by men who, instead of using their power for justice, they sold their souls to demons for power, and solely for their own selfish desires. It is said that they are trapped in a perpetual cycle of slaughter, engaging in endless violence. So Athena vanished them to a place known as Death Queen Island. It is said in the mythological era there was a 13th temple in the sanctuary. It was the temple of the bearer of the serpent. The guardian temple of the serpent was the most benevolent, wise, and brave of the 13 saints. But his most noble act was that he could save people from disease that afflicted them, as he could heal any wounded person, to the point where people began calling him a god. However, it did not take long before he became arrogant and sought to truly become a god. He incurred the wrath of the gods, was hunted down in the sanctuary, and his very existence was erased. He would later return in the series to enact his revenge. While not mentioned as a brutal enemy, Hades would become an iconic part of the Holy Wars. As much as the evil Hades trope is a bit tired these days, now thinking about it, I believe Hades' arc might even predate Disney Hercules. On top of that, Hades here is definitely a stand-in for Satan, considering the dragon symbol and the fact that the underworld in Saint Seiya is pretty much just Dante's Inferno. So I would say Hades is a combination of course, Hades myth, Satan, but also Dracula. Anyways, Hades' actions are rarely his own. Usually, his plans are performed by women. The human servant and leader of his 108 specters, Pandora, and the goddess of violent death, Ker. Hades' wife is also mentioned in databooks and shown in Saint Seiya Online, which can be considered a canon timeline, but never appears beyond that. So my guess is at some point, for some reason, she was killed and sealed. Maybe she was actually the meaner one. Amusing enough, Poseidon would come to be the one to have mellowed out after the Holy War, awakening once and not even starting a war with Athena. The war we see in the series was caused by human trickery, and after that, Poseidon and his hosts have pretty much been forces of good in the franchise. And while not given much detail, and honestly we may never get much detail, is the war between Olympus and the primordial gods, which ultimately resulted in the primordial gods losing and having their bodies sealed. Alright, if somehow you see this video and you're not familiar with Saint Seiya, now's a good time to start, as we will soon be heading into the war with the Saints and Zeus in the mainline timeline. That's basically it, the most important bits of lore for a pre-classic manga, but if you like, I could do another part going into the story bits just before the classic starts, covering the spin-offs more. Let me know in the comments and remember to like, sub, hit the bell. Later.